Hello everybody and welcome back to Reprieve Media CIC Double Handful. What we've got today is we've just got a quick little hour or so radio for you. We're just going to discuss what's happened so far in the British and Irish, might French quite possibly, I don't know, national hunt season so far. Heading all roads, as you know, will lead to Cheltenham Festival in March, but that's for another day. In the meantime, I'll just make sure that our co-host is there. You should be there. Let's see if he is. Steve Allpress. Steve, are you there, sir?
Yes, I'm here, Paul. Thanks for having me on again.
Right, Steve, fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us. How's things been with you, sir, over the past few months?
Yeah, great, thank you. Managing to do my daily running and that, just getting into winter season's quite difficult to keep motivated, but it's a job that has to be done. So yeah, and obviously I've been watching the racing, as we're going to discuss in a moment, and I'm looking forward to the Christmas period now and into the new year. Really, there's a lot to look forward to.
There certainly is, sir. There certainly is. Like you said, we're going to touch on with just a brief recap of what we've seen so far, really, before we look ahead. I mean, we have to really start, I think, with a race that I know that you had a very close interest in, which was the Grade 2 chase at Ascot. It seemed to give the racing public what people wanted, a clash between Altior, trained by Nicky Henderson, and the Paul Nicholls French import Surname. I mean, what do you make of the whole build-up to this contest and the subsequent goings-on, sir?
Well, first of all, obviously, from last year and, even prior to that, I've been a big Altior fan. Obviously, regarding the matchup with Surname, which obviously we saw a couple of weeks ago, I was one that was, I was well up for any clash of two champions. I'm more than happy to see it, and I must admit, it'd been in the melting pot for a while. It was just where and when they were going to meet, and it appeared that Altior was going to be the one that stepped up in trip off the two, rather than Surname coming back in trip. And it'd been on the cards for a good few months that Altior was going to start off in this race, and Surname was going to take him on. So yeah, it was at Ascot. Altior obviously stepped up to 2.5 miles for the first time. I think going into the race, Surname obviously had a slightly higher rating than Altior, although, from my point of view, that's, I wouldn't say that's necessarily should have been the case. I think on what they've achieved, throughout their careers, up to Ascot, I think Altior had, certainly done a lot more to be the horse with a superior rating. However, he wasn't, and we ended up having this big clash.
Making their way towards the tape. Flags up, starters ready. Walking in. They're off. They race away then for the Christie 1965 chase. A big duel between the highest rated chasers in the land. Surname, blue and pink jacket, leads them down. Have one of the downhill fences to take as they begin their journey. All three are over it safely. Surname just in front of Altior, the black colours, in second place, and Solomon Gray is about 5-6 lengths behind the pair and showing in third place. So they make their first turn. They have 17 fences in total to jump here, with open ditches being 4, 10 and 14 on the way round. They level up and race uphill on towards the home straight, coming towards fence number 2. Surname about 1.5 lengths ahead, pops over it safely. Altior in second place. The duo already some 10 lengths ahead of Harry Skelton and Solomon Gray in third place. Number 3, big lead from Altior in second position. They're all over it safely. They move then to the first of their open ditches. They have 3 of them on the way round. It's fence number 4. Surname. Oh, took off a long way from it. Had to reach, did so stylishly though. Touchdown by right about a length to Altior in second as they come to number 5, one before the home turn, and Solomon Gray already 15-20 lengths behind these other pair, who are not hanging around as they run then inside the final 2 miles and begin the turn into the home straight for the first time in this Christie 1965 chase. So it's Harry Cobden on Surname leading from Nico de Boinville on Altior, about 2 lengths behind in second place. They come then to fence number 6. There's been some big leaps from Surname early on here. Solomon Gray just at it now, pops over it okay. They run up the straight then to number 7. Surname, about a length and a half, maybe 2 ahead of Altior in second place. Both over it safely. They race up to the winning post, and coming towards that fence, Solomon Gray is up and over safely. So 1 circuit to go. Surname, officially the highest rated chaser in training after 2 very wide margin victories over today's course and distance back in January and February. Behind him, Altior, who's won 19 races in a row. That winning run started in October of 2015, and it was 1 month before Surname had his first ever race. The match really on between the pair, because now they're 20-25 lengths ahead of Solomon Gray. So now 10 fences to jump. The next 4 are downhill to the far side. Surname, Altior, big leap over it in second position. There's not much between them again. Solomon Gray just gets to it now in third position. Another downhill plain fence coming up. Surname, just a length ahead to Altior in second place. When they get to the home turn here, Altior will be the one in new territory. It'll be furthest he's gone. A little bit of a scrappy lead from Solomon Gray at the back of the field. They have now the second of the open ditches coming up. Surname continues to lead, give a lead of about a length and a half to Altior in second place. Both over it well. So now they've completed a circuit. Solomon Gray just pops over it now in third place. 7,500 for third here, 40,000. And a lot of glory to the winner. Surname fired into that one, picked up well, got over it by 2, maybe 2.5 lengths as they begin the right-handed swing for home. So now they've got a mile to go, 6 more fences to take, no change in the order. Harry Cobden on Surname being in front, Nico de Boinville on Altior, always giving chase, and they have for quite some time been a long way clear from Solomon Gray. Running uphill then, 6 from the finish. Surname in front, length and a half. Altior in second position. Both over it well. 5 to jump for them now as they run down towards the next plain fence. Solomon Gray pops over that. 5 from the finish. Surname in front. Altior, length and a half behind in second position. Final one of the open ditches coming up then. 4 from the finish. Surname still leading, going to be asked for a big leap. Got it as well, landing by a length and a half to Altior in second position. Solomon Gray coming towards it now. He's popped over it okay. So now 3 from the finish. Surname, another big leap, about 2 lengths away to Altior in second position. Just encouraged a little bit there by Nico de Boinville to get after it. So this is what we came for. This is the home turn now. 2 plain fences to go in the Christie 1965 chase. Surname continues to be in front on the left. On the right is Altior, now coming through to try and deliver his challenge as they move to the second last fence. Surname just in front to Altior. Surname by 2 lengths to Altior in second position. They head then down towards the last fence, and now Altior in second position comes under pressure. Surname trying to make all here, has about a 2.5 length advantage. They come towards the last. Asked for a big leap, he responded, he landed by 3 lengths. Surname and Harry Cobden in front. Altior in second place, 4 lengths behind him. And it is Surname who gets the spoils here. Surname and Harry Cobden have made all. Altior valiant, but it was defeated by about 2.5 lengths. And Solomon Gray on the running, coming up now in his own time for third money.
And as you well know, Surname was the one that came out on top on the day. I must say, going into the race, I was concerned. I was concerned for Altior in regards to stepping up to 2.5 miles for the first time. I always felt that, you know, when you've won every start, you know, over timber, why over 2 miles? Why step up and take a challenge that's not, in my opinion, not necessary? Obviously, Connections decided they were going to go that route for a possible potential tilt at the King George on Boxing Day, which now looks more than unlikely. And yeah, Altior come out second best. So you obviously, I wouldn't say Surname's the better horse based on that victory, but I just felt that on the day he was the better horse. But I purely think it's down to that Altior didn't stay the trip. Obviously, it is only one run, so it's hard to look at it in a way to be absolutely pinpoint that was the reason why Altior got beat. But for me, that was a big part of why Altior got beat on that day.
I mean, what did you make of the ground on the day, sir?
The ground's obviously very testing on the day, and you know, if you're going up in trip, testing ground's going to test your stamina. So obviously, I think Connections would have preferred decent ground, and I think Altior's a much better horse than decent ground. That said, I think, you know, when you've won every race over 2 miles, I think you're stepping up into another horse's territory. I think you're asking for trouble myself. But yeah, it was bad ground. But that said, Altior had ran on bad ground in the Tingle Creek last year against Undersow, so I don't purely put it down to the ground, but I think when you're running over an extended trip, I do think you'd prefer the ground to be on the better side, but obviously it wasn't on the day, and Surname relished it, and Altior looked like he was struggling to me from a good while out. As I said, I think the trip played a big part in it, and also my gut feeling is Altior might not quite been 100% on the day as well, but obviously that's just an opinion. But I think the trip stepping up to 2.5 miles was a big concern for me before the race, and it proved that way.
I mean, yeah, you're saying nothing new here. I mean, those people that have took the time to listen to our broadcasts over the last couple of years while we've been going, will know that you are of the view that this horse is a 2-miler, backed up by his form. I mean, it's not rocket science, this horse racing business. I mean, personally, I could see why they would do it if he was an entire, because you could breed from the horse then, Altior. But the horse is a gelding, sir, and he's a 2-miler. Why just not keep him at the trip? I mean, you're looking, the trainer is a Unibet ambassador. You know, do you think that they are looking to get this, not looking to get the horse beat, but that they're looking to test the horse when he doesn't necessarily need to be tested, aren't they? There's plenty of 2-mile races from Grade 1s. People have been winning on that horse. And do you think that where is this pressure coming from, do you think, for him to up this horse up in trip? It's not coming from you, is it?
Certainly not, Paul. Well, you know what it's like when any athlete, whether it's a horse or a human, they're so dominant, in what they do. There's always public demand to see them try or attempt something that, would take them out of their comfort zone. And for me, look, we saw Altior. He's won over 2 miles. He had 5 starts over hurdles over 2 miles. He won them all. We had 14 starts over fences. He'd won them all over 2 miles. And then obviously he stepped up in his 15th chase and he's been beat. For me, as soon as Altior won the Queen Mother Champion Chase last year, there's been public pressure to step him up and, aim him at the King George. When you look at the horse running, I can understand what people are saying when they say, Altior looks like he's a horse that needs a trip now. He's a horse that seems to get a little bit outpaced in his races and he runs on strongly at the end, which I can see. I can see that point of view for sure. But that isn't necessarily the case in my opinion. Like, you know, there's horses, it all depends on how the races run. For me, there was a few races last year where Altior's had to do the donkey work. He's had to go out in front and, you know, make your own running, and visually you're not as impressive as you might be. And I think it's just got into people's heads that Altior needs a further trip, and you know, it comes from race fans, then it comes from, you know, the racing presenters, and I think they just went overboard about it all. For me, you know, he's won 2 champion chases. You've won every race over 2 miles. Why broke something that's not needing fixing? You know, I can't remember in my lifetime a horse that's gone and won 3 champion chases. Certainly not 3 consecutive champion chases. And Altior, if they'd trained him properly, and he still might, he had a massive chance of winning 3 Queen Mother champion chases. You know, and for me, winning 3 champion chases is a huge feat. You know, very, very, very rarely can horses achieve anything of that sort. And, you know, risking running him over 2.5 miles with potentially looking to go up to 3 miles, which they were planning to do. Obviously, I don't think they are at this present precise moment now. I just think there's a slight possibility they might have dented the horse a little bit. I hope not. I really hope not. We'll only find out next time when he comes back to 2 miles. But for me, I think it's, like referring to your question, I think it's public demand myself. I think when someone or something's so dominant, they want to see it tested. They think it gets a little bit boring, and I think they want to see it tested. And I think, you know, the horse has racked up all these wins, saying like 19 wins on the bounce. People have got a little bit bored of it, and they want to see more. And they asked for the match race. You know, Altior, to be fair to Connections, the one thing I will say is they did step up out of their comfort zone at the back end of last season in the Celebration Chase. Surnames Connections didn't want to come back to 2 miles. They weren't having any of that. So Altior's had to go out and trip and race Surname on their conditions, and he's been beat. And it doesn't surprise me. Obviously, it's disappointing, but for me, they shouldn't have done it. They should have stick to what they know and stick to what the horse is good at.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, it's hard to disagree with much of what you said there. So you're comfortable with these trainers being ambassadors for bookmakers, then, are you? You don't think there is a potential conflict of interest there, then? Because I feel that, you know, this guy, the trainer, Nicky Henderson, is obviously a good trainer. Why does he just not want to win the 2 mile champion chase? I can't see. You seem to think that you've sort of answered my next question already, because my next question was going to be, what if he was yours? Where would you go from here? What is next for Altior? I mean, you would obviously drop him back to 2 miles, like you've said, and go for the champion chase. Yeah. I mean, do you think that's what they'll do?
Well, yeah. Referring like to what you was asking, you know, it's difficult. As you say, Nicky Henderson, he's a top trainer, and he knows the time of day. He's had all champions throughout the years. They know exactly what they're dealing with at home, and he even said leading up to, like, a couple of days before the race at Ascot, he said, I'm a little bit concerned now that Altior's showing too much speed. And I was thinking to myself then, well, that's exactly what I'm thinking. So, and if I can see it, you know, and I'm nothing to do with the horse, not involved in the horse at all, just watch it closely on the television. If I can see it, surely they can see it. They should do anyway. So, you know, it is a strange one. But for me, you know, maybe it was the pressure from the owner. You know, only Nicky Henderson, I know Nico de Boinville, jockey, who I have a lot of respect for. He said he did mention at the back end of last year that he thought the horse would appreciate a step up in trip. And, you know, as I mentioned, visually looking at it, yeah, I can understand where he's coming from. But for me, you know, you don't need to do that until necessary. And when you're winning races, Grade 1 races, I don't see why you'd take the horse out of its comfort zone. And yeah, regarding like on where I think Altior will go next, they've obviously pulled it out the King George now on Boxing Day, which I think is a very good decision. Finally, they're making a decision that I think's good for the horse. Whether they go to the Desert Orchid Chase, I think that's run the day after Boxing Day at Kempton. Whether they go there or somewhere else now, only time will tell. But I'm certain now they are going back to 2 miles, and they're going to leave going up in trip open for later in the season. For me, if they do try it again, they're going to have to go to Aintree for the Melon Chase on Grand National weekend. Because if it's ever to get 2.5 miles, I think they're going to have to choose a flat track when the ground's decent and just go then. But before Cheltenham, it needs to have races. It needs to be prepped now for 2 mile races. It needs a race at Christmas. It needs a race around February time. And then it needs to try and defend its title in March. And then after that, review it again. And if they feel like they need to go for a race over further, go to Aintree over the 2.5. But certainly go there, but do not go to Punchestown after that. Because I remember quite a few years back when Nicky Anderson and his team, they sent Sprinter Sacra to all 3 festivals and they ended up ruining him. And after Punchestown, the next season he wasn't the same. It might just have been a coincidence that the horse had problems, but for me, running a horse don't get me wrong, I know it can happen and they do win, but running a horse at Cheltenham, Aintree and Punchestown for me is a step too far for a horse. It can bottom them, especially if you're looking like at their future. And I think just 2 of the festivals is enough. And I think if you're looking for the horse to come back the following year, you need to keep them kind of fresh as possible, really. Altior is 9 years old now, so this season really should be his peak season. So, he's had a bad start to the season. He didn't run an awful race, but it's a disappointing start to the season. But I think if they can get him back to where he was and stick with 2 miles, I think he'll be all right. And I think he'll turn up for the Champion Chase in March and he'll be a warm order favourite again. But obviously, see him run again, there's that little bit of doubt now in your mind. But I'm hoping that I know they'll bring him back to 2 miles now, and I'm just hoping he shows that old spark again.
I mean, what about the French horse? What do you think Surname will do? I mean, to me, he don't look a Gold Cup horse to me. He's in no man's land, isn't he, Surname? Do you think? I noticed he didn't even go to Cheltenham last year, did he? What have you heard anything about future plans for Surname? Because to me, this race, as a conclusion as to the better horse, very unsatisfactory race. I want to see a 10-runner race and them not messing about in a 3-runner race before we see who is the best horse out of these 2. I mean, what do you see in the future for Surname, sir?
Well, as you say, I think it's one of those where the horse is, as you say, stuck in no man's land. It's an in-between horse. For me, it's a 2.5 miler that just might get 3 miles, but again, he's got quite a lot of speed, Surname, and for me, the King George would be his limit, but I certainly don't look at him as a Gold Cup horse. I think he's got a little bit too much speed, or do you call it class? But at the same time, I don't think he's quite Champion Chase kind of horse. I think he's, in an ideal world, he'd be running in the Ryanair, but obviously the Ryanair Chase doesn't kind of attract some of the bigger horses. They look at the Gold Cup and the Champion Chase as like priority. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm not quite sure, but I think it's a good horse. Definitely, I think it's a very good horse. But again, I think it's a 2.5 miler myself, and that might stretch miles, but I wouldn't be certain.
So you would think then that can you ever see these 2 racing again? Then Altior and Surname, in your world, they wouldn't, no?
The only time I can see these 2 racing again is at Aintree at the back end of the season. It's the only place I can see them meeting up again. But again, they only seem to like to run Surname on soft ground. I think he has a tendency to appreciate the cut a little bit more. So I know last season at Sandown over 2 miles, they didn't want to race on the quicker ground. So I think it will be all ground dependent regarding Surname. But, there's always a chance. But I don't think they'll be looking at 2 miles with Surname. And I don't think Altior certainly won't be going up to 2.5 miles before entry, in my opinion. So, you know, they might meet somewhere down the line, but I can't see it being in the Queen Mother Championship. Certainly will not be in the Gold Cup.
And it won't be in the King George either.
No.
I mean, yes, sir, I agree with you. I think personally it'll be interesting to see what they do with Altior. I'm not ruling anything out with the horse now. But we're going to move on. We're going to move on now. I mean, is there any other horses that you've seen this year, sir, that you feel are worth a mention?
Yeah, obviously I've been watching the majority of the big graded races. I'm still to catch up on a few of the meetings, but yeah, you know, some of these horses, they won't be new to anybody. I think quite a few people would have heard these ones before, but they're certainly horses that I think are going to have a good season, and you know, they're going to turn up for Cheltenham as live contenders. The first one, obviously, you know from last year, Paisley Park, the Stayers Hurdler. He won on his seasonal comeback at Newbury, I think it was. At Newbury? Yeah, at Newbury a couple of weeks ago. He beat Thistlecrack, giving weight away. I wouldn't say he was visually impressive, but I just like the way he went about it. He looked well in himself to me, and I think there's a lot of improvement to come. He's the first one. Another one, horse that was defeated last, but I've not given up on it, is Sam Crow. Obviously, we've spoken about Sam Crow over the last year or so quite a bit. One is seasonal reappearance over fences, and then last time I think he kind of crumpled on landing last time. Obviously he was well in contention that day, and if anything, he looked like he was going to win the race up until that point. So Sam Crow's another one that I've got high hopes for this season. Lorena, the Willie Mullins mare, she's also got many options open to her. She's also taken up a chasing campaign, and they'll be looking at the races between 2 and probably 2.5 miles for her. She's been out once this season and looked visually impressive. She jumped quite well. I think there's a lot of improvement to come from her. She was obviously disappointing at Cheltenham in the Champion Hurdle, but you know, that was then, and I think you know, they're looking forward to a new season with her. A couple more. Envoy Allen, novice hurdler from Gordon Elliott Yard. It's been out. It obviously won the bumper last year at Cheltenham. It's been out over hurdles. It won a decent hurdle race last time against one of the Jigginstown horses, Abracadabras. That's one to look out for. And, you know, a couple more. Epatante, I think you remember me tipping up Epatante at Cheltenham for the Mares Hurdle last year. She was disappointing, but she's come back well this year and won her only start. And the last one that's impressed me visually the most this year out of any horse is the Henry de Bromhead trained Honeysuckle. She won the Hatton's Grace Hurdle at Fairy House several weeks ago, and I think her next engagement's it's going to be over Christmas time. It's just a question of whether it's going to be in the Red Mills Hurdle at Gorham Park or the Irish Champion Hurdle at Leopardstown, I think. But again, there's a lot of options open to her. But, you know, for me, she's probably a horse that is one of those it's quite tough for her because she's like a 2.5 mile specialist. And it's whether they stick to that and go for the Mares Hurdle at Cheltenham, or whether they go brave and go for the Champion Hurdle or try and stretch her out for the Stayers. But, you know, for me, she's a 2.5 miler. But, you know, there's plenty of options open for her before Cheltenham and at Cheltenham. But they're just a few of horses that I'm looking forward to, but obviously there's quite a few more as well, but they're the main ones.
I mean, yeah, Epatante, very impressive. I was well impressed with that one. I mean, I wasn't really paying much attention last year to any races. You told me it travelled well last year. I was very disappointed with it at Cheltenham, but it looked a class animal that day. It won at Newbury last time out, absolutely trotted all over him, and it could be a Mares Hurdle type horse. You don't really know, do you? It looks a very nice horse. I agree with you. I mean, you did well to spot that before most people. It must have just flopped on the day at Cheltenham because obviously if you look at all its other runs and the run at Cheltenham, the run in Cheltenham's clearly not her true run, is it?
No, exactly. You know, she's turned up against similar horses, quite a few of them the same actually, as that were in that race that day. And she ran terrible. But yeah, they had headgear on her at Cheltenham, and obviously they took it off this time, and it seemed to do the tricks. I'm not sure whether it was that was the problem or whether she just wasn't right on the day, but obviously she clearly come back to form a couple of weeks ago, and there's a lot of options open to her now. I see that she's head of the market for the Betfair hurdle, I think it is. So there's a lot of options open to her, but I'd like she's a horse that will contest in probably the Mayor's Hurdle at Cheltenham come March. She certainly stays 2 miles well, so I think 2.5 miles won't be a problem. But obviously, you could end up having a couple of real good horses in there. Benny Deju from Willie Mullins, I think they're going to target that race again. And Honeysuckle's a possibility, so it could be a hot Mayor's Hurdle come March, but it's a bit early to say at this stage. But, there's a lot to look forward to.
There certainly is. I mean, I've spotted a couple that I think are very interesting horses. I mean, pretty much I'm just looking at pedigrees, really, and some form as well. I mean, one I know we both do like, we have to mention, is Champ. I mean, he's one that really could be destined right for the very top, in my view. The Dam is a half-sister to Best Mate, Cornish Rebel, and all them. Inca Trail, remember that one running for McCain a few times? Champ to me, you're not sure about his jumping at this stage though, sir, are you?
Well, I must say, going into Cheltenham last year, I was a huge fan of Champ, and I know the connections for a hell of a lot of him, and they still do. I was disappointed he got beat at Cheltenham, but he didn't run a bad race. He was just found one too good for him on the day, but he hadn't run for a while before Cheltenham, so maybe he needed to run a little bit, because when he went to Aintree after Cheltenham, he seemed to be a different horse, and he won really well that day. But yeah, obviously he's gone chasing now, and I've watched him now twice over the fences, and I've not been convinced by his jumping. I think he's looked a little bit guessed at a lot of his fences, and that's a little concern for me. But one thing that don't concern me is the horse's engine. I think the horse has got a huge engine. I think, it's one of them. If they can iron out his jumping and kind of get his jumping fluent and get them little kind of mistakes out of the way, I think the horse is going to be a major player come Cheltenham in March. But yeah, as you say, I'm a little bit concerned with the jumping at this current stage. But, there is time yet. I remember seeing Denman in his first couple of chases, and he's a horse that I admired so much, and he was a proper natural chaser. But even him in his first couple of chases was a little bit sketchy at the fences, and I was just thinking similar things with him really. That I'd like to see his jumping brush up a little bit, but his did as his career went on, and I'm hoping Champ can do the same. But you can just tell from when you hear connections speak that they really think Champ's the real deal. And, he made a couple of terrible errors last time, but he still managed to win. And I think that's a sign of a very good horse. So yeah, I think he needs to improve on his jumping, but the engine and the ability is all there for me. That there's no question mark on that.
I mean, you mentioned his defeat at Cheltenham. He lost to City Island, didn't he? Oh, that is no disgrace. City Island is a very nice horse, so that form could be rock solid there. Which that leads me on to my next one, sir. I mean, I don't know if you've got a view on this horse. It's only ran a couple of times. It's called Fury Road. You seen that one?
Fury Road. Off the top of my head, I can't think. I'd have to come back to you on that one, mate. But
well, yeah. I mean, I will encourage that people will have a look at this horse definitely, because it won a Group 3 last time when the one horse you mentioned earlier, Abracadabras, was a non-runner. And that meant that Fury Road went off at 1-25 to win a Group 3 contest. And the Dam of Fury Road is actually half sister to City Island that won that Cheltenham last year, and the second Dam is a half sister to Morley Street and Granville again. That's a serious horse. Fury Road to me looks as though well worth keeping an eye on, a novice hurdler. What about All Mankind? So, have you had a chance to look at that one yet? Juvenile hurdler, All Mankind, trained by Dan Skelton, sorry.
I do briefly see in the video replay, but again, I'm not closely familiar with it. But I do briefly remember seeing the clip of it. But yeah, again, I'd have to come back to you on that one, Paul, because I'm not quite familiar on that one.
So where are you with the Triumph at the minute then, sir? Have you not really got a view on the Triumph hurdle at the moment?
No, I must say I did watch one of the Cheltenham Triumph hurdle races several weeks ago, but yeah, I must say I wasn't overly taken by anything, but you know, there's still a long way to go yet of the season, so I'm sure something will pop out. There's a lot of entrants over the Christmas period, so I'm sure we'll see something come out.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to mention this All Mankind again. The only thing that lets him down really is he's quite poor on the flat. He had 7 runs on the flat and only won once. If you look at it, he was last of 6 on his only try and listed race. So that really might sort of, but the pedigree of the horse, you cannot knock the pedigree of this horse in any way. It's related to 5 National Hunt sires. The dam of it is a full sister to Beat Hollow. And the half-sister to Brightest, there's other horses in there, Wemyss Bright. But it gets interesting when you look down at horses like Trellis Bay, because that is the Grand Dam of New Bay, you know, the old French horse, the Juddmonte, that went to America. And then it's also half-sister to Coraline as well. And Coraline is the dam of Coastal Path and Marteline. Superb National Hunt sires. This horse could be good, is what I'm saying. It looks... You watch its first run at Warwick, it's incredible to watch. The horse he was trying to restrain it, and it one by one, incredible. And then it did the same again at Cheltenham, led all the way again at Cheltenham. I mean, with this sort of pedigree, it'd take a good one, I think. And it's an interesting race this year, the Triumph, because like you say, there doesn't seem to be... This time last year, Sir Eric hadn't even ran. Sir Eric made his hurdles debut, I think, on Boxing Day. So there is a long way to go yet, sir, isn't there?
Yes, certainly. You know, I'm sure everything will come into place, you know, over the next few weeks, and we'll have a better view then on you know, going forward.
I mean, one you might have a view on quickly that I've got written down as well. It's a horse I think really, who knows where it's going to end up at Cheltenham. If they've run it in handicaps, novice chases this year. I know that. Like you say about Champ, you saying that Connections always like the horse. I know that from what I've been reading and hearing as well, that the Tizzards do like this horse. And Slate House is the horse I'm talking about. I mean, I'm not sure whether the horse is a chaser or a hurdler, because it's actually related, very well-bred horse. It's related, the dam of it is a half-sister to Bucks, the dam of Big Bucks, and Bucks Boom, the sire. And if you look at the horse Slate House, when it fell last time out, and it's actually won since then on novice chasing, actually. But when it fell in that big handicap at Cheltenham, it was tanking. It went through every fence and was still tanking round at the end, didn't it, before it eventually fell. I mean, to me, that's an interesting horse. I don't know if you've got any views on Slate House at this stage.
Yeah, I must admit, I have the same view of you. Like that day it come down at Cheltenham, it was definitely going to win it. You know, it was making errors throughout the race, but you know, just as they come into the business end of the race, it was making smooth headway there on the outside, and I think it crumbled on landing, didn't it? Was it approaching second last, or it was? I'm sure it was coming there to win the race, but
you don't know how much the exertions had took out of the horse, maybe clattering every fence on the way round. It might not have got home, but it was, without any shadow of a doubt, that horse looks to have races at its mercy. I don't know, but interesting that they kept it to novice chasing, though. I mean, do you see it as a chaser as opposed to a hurdler? What do you make of the horse?
Well, looking at it, it looks like it's got the physique of a chaser. I think it's one of those horses that, you know, visually to me looks like a chaser, but obviously it seems to clout the fences, and it just makes you think maybe should they go back to hurdles. But, you know, like you say, I think there's definitely a race there for it.
It reminded me of Big Bucks' run in the Hennessy, you know, when he fell, and they put him back to hurdles, and it was the making of him. I'm not saying that history will ever repeat itself with Slate House, but with the pedigree that he has got, I'd have to consider it. But he had a nice stroll round the other day in a small field novice chasing, but the big races aren't going to be like that, are they? If them jumping errors are still there, if they run him in, say, I don't see him as an Arkle horse, 2-miler, if they run him in, say, the JLT novice chase, he'd be as eligible for that as he would be the 2.5 mile handicap chases, you know, because he's been been well highly tried. There's so many races that they could go for with him. The jumping hours are still going to be there, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, at Cheltenham, certainly in these, any race at Cheltenham, whether it's a grade one or whether it's handicap, you need to jump. It's the name of the game. You have to jump well, and obviously he's going to have to brush up his jumping. But like you say, it's also travels well in that. And if they can get him around with minimal mistakes, you're sure to see the horse at business end of the race, and certainly win one of these big races, because you can see it that the ability is there in the horse, but it just doesn't seem to be able to have a clean round of jumping, in these big races. But I think there could be a race for it for sure. I wouldn't say no, put it that way.
I couldn't believe what I was watching in that race at Cheltenham. It literally was like a Terminator. You weren't even jumping the fences half the time, just going straight through them. At the top of them, he must have hit every fence, and the horse was relentless. It was galloping and galloping. Hit a fence, give up the ground, and then 5 or 6 strides later, it was back where it was. It's not losing any ground for hitting every fence. I mean, an incredible run. It comes no surprise to me when it did eventually, unfortunately, part its way with the jockey. But I'm of no doubt on that day that the horse would have won that race, sir. Oh, what a horse it looked that day. But it'd be interesting to see where they campaign it, because they've got a lot of similar horses, Tizzards, haven't they? They like a trip. They like a fence. They're not shy of running them against each other, are they?
No, certainly not. So, I'm sure we'll find out, as the season goes on, where they're going to aim it at. But, my gut feeling is we'll probably see it in a handicap come the festival. But, you never know.
I tend to agree with you there. Sam Crow was the last one on my list. Obviously, we're massive Sam Crow fans here. I mean, I've got to mention his run against Fakir Dudury that you touched on. He was giving Fakir Dudury £8 that day, and Fakir Dudury was a dual-placed Grade 1 hurdler. And I'm of the view that, again, a bit like Slate House, there was only one winner in that race if Sam Crow stood up. Sam Crow was travelling like an absolute tank in that race. What a horse.
Yep, I agree with you totally. Obviously, we're big fans of Sam Crow, and as you mentioned, the JP horse was getting £8 from him that day, and we know that the JP horse it had a race, a prep run prior to that, and it went out and jumped fences fluently, and that's the horse's main attribute. It's jumping, and it seemed to be jumping well against Sam Crow. But as the race developed, I think Sam Crow was coming into the race well, and at the time of his departure, it was certainly the horse that you'd want to be on. It was definitely travelling like the winner at that current time, and it was just a shame it come down. But I listened to the connections thoughts afterwards, and I think Gordon Elliott's thinking that maybe 3 miles will be where Sam Crow turns up in March, rather than 2.5 miles. So it'll be interesting to see, but there's a lot to look forward to with Sam Crow.
Sam Crow versus Champ then, what a race.
Yeah, that would be a hell of a race.
RSA Chase. I mean, I obviously like Sam Crow just on his ability on the track. One of the best travelling horses I've ever seen. When he come to win that first graded hurdle that he won, and he come there on the bridle, and off he went, and he quickened away, and he was so much better than everything else. He's actually a well-bred horse as well. The second dam of Sam Crow is a half-sister to a horse you'll definitely remember, I think, called Sound Man. Very good horse, that was. And so, yeah, we can't rule Sam Crow out of anything, sir, can we, is what we're saying?
No, definitely not. Obviously, he needs to get back to winning ways next time, and his jumping needs to be sound. But, I think there's a lot to look forward to with him.
Yeah, without any shadow of a doubt. I mean, before we go, we're going to wrap things up quickly now. Have you got any views on the King George, the big race over Christmas, sir, at this early stage?
Yeah, no, I have. I'll just quickly give you my thoughts before I go. I think it's an exciting race. I must say, I do only think there's several protagonists in there, and the horse that I'm most interested in, although I do feel that the Gold Cup track suited to him, is lost in translation. Quite a big fan of this horse. I think it travels well, jumps well, and stays. So he'd be my selection in the race, but I do feel that he is more of a Gold Cup horse than a King George horse. But saying that, I'd definitely like to stick with him after that last win at Haydock against Bristol de Mai. I think he's an improving horse.
Couldn't really disagree with that. I've looked at the pedigree of the horse, though. There's not enough there for me these days with him. But yeah, he looks very visually impressive on the track, doesn't he? And the way he was ridden with a lot of confidence against Bristol de Mai, wasn't he, by Robbie Power? He seems to be my type of jockey, Robbie Power. I don't mind holding horse up. And he rode it with so much confidence, and off it went. It made Bristol de Mai look average, and everybody knows who watches these races, Bristol de Mai is not an average horse around Haydock. He was going for the third win of the race in succession. So that has to go down as a good performance. But for me, there is one in there that I do like, and it's weird how the positions reverse when you look at horses properly. I mean, you were massively strong on this horse a year or two ago, and I was not strong about it, really, through what it boils down to, really, is my own ignorance of not looking at horses properly. And that is Footpad. I mean, Footpad is a beautifully bred horse. I never knew that at the time. And if I did, then I'd have been with you all the way in them Arkles, because that is a beautifully bred horse. And I think he could be in for a massive year this year, Footpad. I don't know what you think of the horse.
Yeah, well, I certainly wouldn't put you off Footpad. Obviously, he had a bit of a disappointing season last season, but he had well-documented problems. He's another horse that we've seen out this season, and we can see that his well-being certainly there, and connections always thought that a step up and trip would benefit Footpad. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't write anybody off Footpad. I think he'd go there with a solid chance.
I mean, yeah, without any shadow of a doubt. I mean, it was his pedigree that impressed me about the horse. It was just a very well-bred horse. Fair play to him, I thought. How he was winning 2-mile chases, because he's not really bred for them. I mean, I'm just looking at his pedigree now quickly, if you can bear with me, and then we will wrap up. It's worth noting just how well-bred this horse is. On the flat and on the jumps, you see. It's a very well-bred horse. And it's no surprise to me that it was good enough to win a Grade 1 4-year-old hurdle. Because there's a lot of pace in the pedigree as well.
Yeah, definitely. I can see exactly where you're coming from. And obviously, to win a King George, you do have to have pace. Again, to win any King George, you do have to stay the 3 miles well. I do know people say, it's an easy 3 miles, which I do understand, but it's still 3 miles. But yeah, you do need some tactical pace, because I notice in the King George that most of the winners are run prominent, and I think you do need that tactical pace, because I think they get racing from a long way out, and you need that tactical speed to be able to take you into the race. And Footpad's certainly got that. It's just it's a difficult race, but I wouldn't write the horse off. I think he goes there with a solid chance.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you look at the second dam of Footpad, called Animatrice, it's actually a very good flat horse. Group 1 place, Group 2 and Group 3 winning second dam. Animatrice, but she is actually a half sister to Polyglot, one of the best national hunt sires there is. So this is a horse, Footpad, without any shadow of a doubt. There's another Group 3 winner and sire there called Alexius, King Alex. They've all had a go at siring in France, national hunt horses. There's the dam Hula Baloo. Do you remember that one, the old Paul Nicholls horse? That was a half sister to the third dam, half brother to the third dam, Hula Baloo. Very nicely bred horse, Footpad. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was the sort of horse that would run well in the King George, because like you say, it's not a 3-mile sprint chase. But they don't hang about, do they?
No, certainly don't. If you look at the King Georges, from the one kicking King one, the 2 kicking King one, the races Porto Star one, they get racing from a long way out, and usually you get strung out fields. And I think there'll be a lot of writing on the wall by the time they're on the final circuit.
Beautiful link there, sir. Talking of writing on the wall, the writing on the wall is certainly on the wall for this show. We're done now, sir. I think. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us, and we look forward to hopefully you being available around, I don't know, maybe the second week in March, sir. What do you think?
Yes, no problem. I'll be glad to come back in March, and look forward to Cheltenham as always.
I look forward to Cheltenham every year, and I'll be doing a lot of studying from Christmas to Cheltenham.
Oh, so really then, you tend to really focus your national one really from Christmas onwards. You tend to start now, do you?
Well, I've got horses in the back of my mind, the ones I'm interested in. But I find from, I need to see them run a couple of times before I have a real solid opinion on them. But yeah, I've got the ones that I kind of like in my head, and then I just need to see them come out and do it on the track a couple of times before I can, firmly put my colours to them.
Yeah, there's a few more I'm waiting to see. Commander of Fleet, is he going to go staying or hurdling? Hurdling or chasing? City Island, there's a few I'm waiting to look at. But all that's for another day, sir. Steve, can I just say thank you very much for taking the time to put this quick hour's radio together. Just over an hour, actually. Thank you very much, sir, and good luck to you in the future, and all the best.
Thank you very much. Cheers for having me.
No problem, sir. Goodbye.